All right, welcome back to Fifth Street Sports on Sports Byline SB Nation Radio. Talk you can bet on. We just spent a whole hour on the NFC talking about season win totals, the numbers released by offshore sports books and the books here in casinos here in Las Vegas a week or two ago. Lines have already shifted a little bit on the teams. Again, we covered the NFC hour one. You can always go to our site at fifthstreetsports.com. Let me do that again. fifthstreetsports.com with a 5, the number 5. fifthstreetsports.com. You can always watch the old programs that we do. They're all archived up at our site. So you can join the discussion on Facebook at fifthstreetsportstalk.com and check it out. And you can obviously see a lot of things about soccer, about football, about baseball, basketball. We cover it all here. And talk you can bet on at Fifth Street Sports. We've got Charles Jay in Miami. There, if you can see the little, there's an icon up there, and we have him there with the internet connection to talk about the AFC coming up here in hour two. And Frank Perez, resident handicapper of Fifth Street Sports here in Las Vegas with me. Real quick, Frank, we were talking before we get into the teams in the AFC, you were talking about the general concept of betting unders rather than overs if you have to just bet a team. Why is that?
Well, especially on May 12th. Because remember, like this show that we're putting on right now has a 90-day expiration date. They don't kick off for about 90 days. So this stuff is good for almost 3 months. It's because, let's say, for instance, you were to take a New England over or a Pittsburgh over. Those teams they're so heavy on the quarterback. If something was to happen to, Roethlisberger or Brady, you got nothing. You can only get hurt betting over on them. You can only get hurt.
Yeah, the team win totals are predicated upon healthy
on those
starting
teams.
Quarterbacks, that's for sure. We only got about 15, 20 seconds. Let's bring in CJ. Charles Jay, you there?
I am here.
All right, you ready to talk about the AFC?
I sure am.
All right, we're going to talk about the AFC. We got a lot of teams to cover. 16 teams left in the AFC to cover in this second hour of Fifth Street Sports Saturday. I can't get it all out, can I?
It's the white wine.
Let me have some more wine, and I'll
it's the white wine. It's some good stuff.
It's white wine. I need red wine. Give me fresh red wine. We'll be right back. We're going to talk about the AFC over the next hour. Stay tuned. Getting tongue-tied. Shit. All right. I should have told CJ just to be a little more Back here on Fifth Street Sports with Frank Perez and CJ, Charles Jay, the resident analyst for BetAnySports.com, providing expertise and perhaps even some betting advice for the AFC. The NFL season win totals have been released, and we're talking about this in May. We may do another show, gentlemen, coming up toward the end of the summer when before the season starts, because a lot can happen with NFL exhibition games and moves and all kinds of things over the next 3 or 4 months. Keep in mind that this show is taking place in May, very much in the off season of the NFL. Let's just get it started. Let's roll out with the Baltimore Ravens. First team in the AFC as we go through this over the next hour. The Baltimore Ravens 9-7 last season. Nick Flacco. By the way, real quick, CJ, Charles Jay is there on the line with me. We were talking off the air earlier, and we were discussing about Nick Flacco. I got to describe Flacco. I have to say, you mentioned something. You don't think Nick Flacco is going to survive the season as a starting quarterback?
Joe Flacco.
Joe Flacco. Excuse me. Joe Flacco is going to survive the season. Is that? Are you still with that?
He doesn't seem happy that they drafted Lamar Jackson and that they moved up 20 spots to get him. That's an indication that that they see him as the future. Flacco hasn't really been that productive since he got that huge contract after winning the Super Bowl. He had the lowest yards per attempt of any quarterback last season. I mean, they're talking, yes, they're going with him, but who knows? Again, we are speculating here. What's going to happen before the real training camp starts? They seem to love what Jackson can do, what he can bring to the table. Remember, they signed Robert Griffin as well. So they're looking for guys with more mobility. And it wouldn't surprise me if they, I don't know if they really could come up with a trade for Flacco, but it wouldn't surprise me, especially if he was going to be really unhappy in that situation. I'm under on the Ravens here.
Wow. Well, let me see. But before we go on here, I just wanted everybody to mention, like before our picks, and you see how professional CJ is, right? The analyst for Bet Any Sports. Mention to them the bonus that you get for playing at BetAnySports.com. It's $1,000 bonus. Up to 50% matching. Plus, with reduced juice, you got the World Cup $2 overnight baseball lines and reduced juice on all of this. It's a 5-star book. So besides our picks, this is the best place to play because we get, we're very proud to, have them as one of our sponsors.
Absolutely.
But as far as Baltimore, the AFC West, NFC South is who they play. Their other 2 games are Buffalo and Tennessee, 8. I would go under. I cannot see. They got to get to 9 for you to lose your bet, so I'll go under 8.
Makes sense. Let's move on to the Buffalo Bills. Buffalo Bills 9-7 last season, made the playoffs for the first time in seems like a long time, and they won a lot of games ugly. Sean McDermott there with the Bills, again a team that who knows where they'll go. A lot of people think they're going to take a step back this season. I mean, certainly the total reflects that at 6.5. My goodness, talk about a drop off in expectation. Shaded slightly toward the over at plus 115, according to the Bet Any Sports line. Frank, what do you think about the Bills?
Oh, okay. Here now, this is the team. I kind of like this bet here. Now they play the AFC South, NFC North. Their 2 off games are the Chargers and Baltimore, and the over 6.5 is plus 115. I'm going over in this entire division except for New England. So I like the over 6.5 plus 115.
Yeah, I'm going to tease you before we go to CJ on this. I'm going to tease you. You'd like all the teams other than New England in that division to go over, and I will hold that thought as to why at the close of the show. CJ, what do you think about the Bills?
They kind of backdoored it into the playoffs last season. I don't know, was it Cincinnati that made that miracle comeback against Baltimore, I think, in the final game that got Buffalo in there?
Yes. As somebody who had the other side, I remember the game.
Yeah, I had it too.
They dealt Tyrod Taylor. I don't know if A.J. McCarron is the answer. I'm not sure how good he is. But here's what kind of worries me about Buffalo is that, you never know if they're out of this division race. At some point in the season, they're going to say, okay, we're going to give Josh Allen an opportunity. And of all these quarterbacks, I think he may be the least able to step into an NFL huddle right now. I think he's one of those guys that looks good, has all the physical attributes, but I think he's got problems with decision making, and they'll suffer because of it. So I would go under here with Buffalo.
Let's move it on to the Cincinnati Bengals. 7-9 last season. Everyone in the NFL thought that this was Marvin Lewis's swan song the last couple of years. Well, they upset the last year. They upset the Lions closing the season. Then they won another game late, as CJ just mentioned there. 7-9 last season. Marvin Lewis still there. 6.5 wins. Wow. What do you think, Frank?
They play AFC West, NFC South, with the 2 games against Miami and Indy. Under 6.5 -115. I'm going to go over with this Cincinnati team. I think they're at least a 7-win team.
Wow.
And
so he's thinking he's going to go 7-9, at least maybe 8-8. Over, says Frank.
I
CJ,
believe, yeah.
what do you think on the Bengals?
Well, that was a strange situation with Marvin Lewis. They did kind of rally for him, right, at the end of the season. He's back. He works cheap, is what I'm told.
And that's a cheap organization.
I'm told by people in the NFL that's the reason they've kept him around for so long. It is a very cheap organization. I think with Andy Dalton, you're kind of limited as to how far you can actually go. But I do think there's enough talent on this team on both sides of the ball to get to 7 wins. So I'd go over as well.
All right, real quick, we're going to move on to the Cleveland Browns. By the way, an intriguing team. They go 0-16, only the second team since the 1970 NFL AFL merger to go winless, 0-16. The Lions, of course, with the other team back in, I think, 2011, I think it was. So the Browns 0-16. Remarkably, their posted win total at BetAny Sports and around Las Vegas, 5.5 wins. People are thinking they're going to win 5 or 6 games. That's pretty remarkable. Explain that to me, please, resident BetAny Sports handicapper analyst Charles Jay.
Personally, I think that asking for more than 4 or 5 wins of improvement would be a stretch for Cleveland. However, they did add some players. I mean, there's one of these years they're going to break out. I'm not saying that facetiously.
Yeah, 2084, watch out.
No. What I'm saying is it's going to be this year or next year. You're going to see, what they've done in the last few years manifest itself. They've added talent. I mean, Carlos Hyde in the backfield. Tyrod Taylor is more than a serviceable quarterback for this team, as Baker Mayfield kind of sits and learns or whatever he's going to do, or he may play right away. But they have receivers. Josh Gordon, I mentioned this to you the other night, I think, on the phone, a guy that led the NFL in receiving yards one year. Jarvis Landry led the NFL in receptions last year for the Miami Dolphins. They addressed some needs on the defensive side of the ball. They're still a ways away on defense, and that's, I think, what's going to hold them back here. I'm under with the Browns, but not resoundingly under. I mean, I think that they'll be much improved this year.
Well, when it comes to the Browns and getting there to the Super Bowl, I have 2 Cleveland Browns buddies that are like diehard Browns fans, and I think there's a better chance that my hunchback aunt straightening out than this team getting to the Super Bowl. So, or getting to even maybe not the playoffs, but I'm going to go under here also. I don't see 6 wins. 4 or 5 and 4 or 5 is pretty decent from 0, So I'll go under.
No respect for the poor Cleveland Browns. Their misery continues, gentlemen. We're going to wrap this first segment up. Talk very briefly about the Denver Broncos, 5-11. Very solid defense. Case Keenum coming in at the quarterback position, apparently in 2018 will be the starter. Vance Joseph, I'm still not a believer he's a head coach material. We're going to talk about let's go ahead and get into the Broncos a little bit, and then maybe we'll cut it off and we'll bring in Charles in the next. Frank, what do you think about the Broncos?
Okay,
By the way, 7 wins is their posted total.
Okay, now they go against, besides their division, of course, they go AFC North, NFC West, and then they play the Jets in Houston, 7 over. I think that this Denver team is a 500 team. I'm going to take over on this. I'm going to take over on it.
All right, I'll tell you what, I'm going to tease everybody, and I'm going to hold the thought that you like the Broncos there, and we'll see what happens there with Charles Jay coming back on the second part of this segment of our number 2 with the AFC. We're going to talk about the rest of the AFC, all the other divisions. Charles Jay is going to pick it up when we come right back. We're going to talk about the Denver Broncos and all the other teams in the AFC. the NFL season win totals, talking here on 5th Street Sports. We'll be right back. Back to 5th Street Sports on Sports Byline, SB Nation Radio. I'm Nolan Dalla. He's Frank Perez. And we're also with Charles Jay, the resident analyst from Bet Sports. We were talking about the AFC season win totals in the NFL. We were discussing the Denver Broncos. I'm going to throw it right over to all the way across the country there in Miami. Charles Jay, what do you think about the Denver Broncos at 7 wins?
Well, potentially the Broncos are a playoff a wild card contender at least, because of the defense. I mean, they were number 1 in total defense last season. They drafted Bradley Chubb, who, but again, potentially is a monster playing on the other, opposite Von Miller. But they made some additions to the offense that could be productive, but. With these journeyman, I'm very wary of these journeyman quarterbacks who have a really good season when they're in exactly the right situation, and can they do that again? I mean, we've seen that before. And so I'm skeptical about Case Keenum, and I wonder whether he's going to be the quarterback all season long for Denver. For that reason, and I do think they're kind of a 7-win team, maybe an 8-win team, but, I would take a price with the under here. Because who knows if we see Paxton Lynch at some point in there. I'd like to see them give Chad Kelly an opportunity. Jim Kelly's nephew, who I think has a load of talent, but was injured last season, sat out his whole rookie year.
Agreed. Defense probably gives them 6, maybe 7 wins, and if the quarterback comes through, maybe they go over that total. Boy, this is an intriguing team to me. The Houston Texans, 4-12 last season, but you know what? The Houston Texans, this is the team that could really break out. Anyone who watched those games where Deshaun Watson at quarterback, he is an absolute game changer. An absolute game changer. I would physically have to stand up when I watched him play. They almost upset the Patriots. Anybody who watched Deshaun Watson under center with the Texans, this is a game changer for this franchise. If he can somehow stay healthy, again, that's a big if. Obviously, J.J. Watt on the defensive line, another big injury concern for the Houston Texans. Let's scroll it there, Boggs. It's the Houston Texans win total at 8.5. A lot of respect for the Texans to go from 4-12. Expectation now that they'll be an above 500 team. Charles Jay, I'll stick with you. What do you think about the Texans?
I'm not sure there was a more dramatic difference between quarterbacks last season than Watson and anybody else that they went to. They scored a load of points with him at quarterback, and I think guys like him, at least for their first couple of seasons in the NFL, can confuse defensive coordinators. They run around a lot. And then what happens is some offensive coordinator wants to settle them down and make them a drop back passer, and all of a sudden they're a different quarterback. But for now, if he gets over this injury, Watson is an effective leader. He's got receivers like Will Fuller downfield. He can, if he can find those guys, this is going to be a pretty explosive offense. They were last in points allowed last season, which was a real surprise for this defense. But remember, J.J. Watt suffered a season-ending injury. Purportedly, he's healthy and ready to go. They added the Honey Badger in the secondary. And so, these are difference makers, Watson especially. And so I'm over on the Houston Texans. I think they can challenge Jacksonville in the division.
Las Vegas, Frank, Houston Texans, 8.5.
I agree with Charles there. They got as soft a schedule as you can get. AFC East, NFC East, then they play Cleveland and Denver as their other 2 games. I see 9 wins here. I see 9 wins. I'll take over with Houston.
Yeah, that's an interesting division to, that's the interesting thing about the Texans. And they're also 3, by the way, they play 3 primetime games on the schedule this season, the Texans do, all at home.
Oh, nice.
Easy schedule.
Nice.
Their primetime games all at home. That Houston situation is going to be rocking. If somehow Deshaun Wilson stays healthy, watch out. Boy, a lot of question marks about the Indianapolis Colts at 4-12 last season. Andrew Luck, I don't think he's thrown a pass in almost 2 seasons. First-year head coach Frank Reich, the comeback kid from the ex-Buffalo Bills quarterback, is his first year as head coach of the Indianapolis Colts. Indianapolis posted win total of 6.5. Charles Jay, what do you think?
I think if Luck is healthy and can play, and I was listening to the general manager the other day, he insists that Luck is going to be there for game 1 of the season, and for training camp. So he's the difference maker. He will push them over 6.5 wins. They've gotten him some more protection. They got the best offensive lineman available in the draft in Quentin Nelson out of Notre Dame. They'll go with some 2 tight end setups because they got Eric Ebron from the Detroit, who played with the Detroit Lions last season. Their running backs are not threatening. The defense is not stellar, but I think the Colts can be a 7-win team. I think they'll creep over this total.
I agree. They go AFC East, NFC East, just like Houston. And then they got Cincinnati and Oakland. I'm going to take the price and go over 6.5 with this team. This team's got a lot of heart. I'll take over.
Bold predictions, gentlemen. I respect that. Jacksonville Jaguars, a little bit of a surprise team last season, getting all the way to, within 5 or 6 minutes of being a Super Bowl, getting in the Super Bowl. They were beating the New England Patriots on their home turf. They beat the Steelers. Jacksonville Jaguars, 10-6 last season. Doug Marrone, what a remarkable job he did as head coach. Blake Bortles, the big question mark at quarterback, but the defense is for real in Jacksonville. Posted win total of 9 wins. What do you think, Charles Jay?
This is one of the 4 really good defenses, really great defenses in the NFL, along with, I think, the Rams now and Denver and obviously Minnesota. Listen, I'm going to save you some time. I think it's the same formula as last season. Defense, pound the football, and hope that Blake Bortles doesn't make mistakes. He did a pretty good job last season in that regard. So I'm over on the 9 wins, and they're a division winner probably again.
Jeez, okay, they go against the East and the AFC. Then they got Pittsburgh and Kansas City, tough games.
Yeah, they play a first place schedule now. That's
yeah.
yeah.
9/20. I'm going to pass. I'm going to pass on this one.
All right, not a lot of respect here. I'm a little surprised. No, a lot of respect for the Jaguars there. Let's move on to the Kansas City Chiefs, 10-6. And by the way, Andy Reid, a career, almost 680, I think. In other words, winning about 2/3 of his games career-wise, Andy Reid, but much maligned, doesn't seem to perform well in the playoffs. They were absolutely steamrolled by the Tennessee Titans in the a division home game where they played and were beaten, upset in the second half by the Titans. Kansas City 10-6 last season. Not a lot of respect there. Thinks they're going to fall back to close to 500 at 8.5 wins. Seems a little low though, given the pedigree of Andy Reid. CJ, what do you think?
Well, I think Andy Reid's offenses at Kansas City have been predicated on cutting down on mistakes. That's really been the most important thing. And Alex Smith was able to do that for them. But now they're transitioning to a player who is really a quasi-rookie. I mean, he's played a couple of games in the NFL. And so now Patrick Mahomes has to be a guy that doesn't make rookie mistakes. To me, a transitional year for the offense. Kareem Hunt he took the NFL by storm last season as a third-round draft choice. I'd like to see him repeat that again, really. I'm not really bullish on the Chiefs here, and so I'm going to go under the 8.5 wins here, as I will with 3 of these teams in the AFC West.
Exactly. Yep.
Not a lot of respect for the AFC West. Frank, you agree?
I agree with that. I do. And there are 2 other games besides the AFC North and the NFC West. They play against New England and Jacksonville. No, this is one of my top 3 here. I like the under here. I don't see 9 wins here.
Wow.
I'll take under.
All right. Not a lot of respect for the Chiefs. Now I'm going to do this over the next 5 years. I know I'm going to keep calling them the San Diego Chargers, but it's the Los Angeles Chargers. Keep slapping me. As I keep calling them San Diego. But they were 9-7 last season. What a remarkable season they had where they win this. They go 0-4 because of a lot of missed field goals, and they win, I think, 9 of 10 or something, and then they lost their last couple of games. But Anthony Lynn is doing a good job as a coach there. Phillip Rivers can always rack up the yardage. That, by the way, gentlemen, is going to be one of the top defenses in the AFC, along with Jacksonville and probably Denver. Watch the LA/San Diego Chargers to hit at least 9-10 wins. By the way, real quick before I go to Charles Jay, this line in Las Vegas opened up at 8. It was bet up to 8.5. It was bet to 9. It's bet to 9.5. So maybe I could see going the other way a bit. But there's been a lot of movement on the Los Angeles Chargers to go over the initial win.
Well, I'm going the other way on this, but not necessarily with a whole lot of enthusiasm. I just think the number's a little too high. They should have won more games last year. And I don't know if you guys realize this or not, but they gave up fewer points per game than any team in the NFL last year. They gave up only 17 points per game. So, yes, the defense is there. I know Anthony Lynn is a guy who likes to pound the football. He's got a background coaching running backs. I don't know that Melvin Gordon is the guy that can really propel this team to a division title, though. I think they need more depth back there. And so, I think this is – and another thing that I think I talked about with you, Nolan.
No home field advantage.
No home field advantage. Many times, almost all the time, the other team, the visiting team, has had more fans in the stands than the Chargers have had.
And the Rams are now the darlings of Los Angeles. You're absolutely right.
A measured play here, but under this total.
All right, we're going to come right back. We're going to do the rest of the AFC. I got to talk real fast, and we'll be right back. with Frank Perez, Las Vegas Frank, along with Charles Jay, CJ in Miami. Well, Miami, appropriately enough, we're going to talk about the Miami Dolphins in a moment. 6-10 last season. Adam Gase, a player's coach, they say. This is a team you know too well, CJ. Give us your Miami local expertise on the Dolphins. Their posted win total is 6 wins. Wow, that seems a little low, doesn't it?
Well, a lot of people have been getting on Derek Jeter's case here for dealing away the Miami Marlins' best players, but look what the Dolphins have done. They had, starting with about mid-season last year, they have let go of Jay Ajayi, Ndamukong Suh, Mike Pouncey, and Jarvis Landry. These are all Pro Bowl players, probably their 4 best players. So it gives you a lot of pause about what their plan is in Miami. I'm not a really big fan of Ryan Tannehill. He can, he's one of those guys. He's a numbers guy, but I don't know that he's going to get them, a lot of victories. The Dolphins could be right at 6. If you put the gun to my head, I'd go under and take the price here.
Frank, you were talking about the AFC East as the division, except if you're going to fade New England, just bet all the other teams over. This includes the Miami Dolphins. What do you think?
Well,
here?
yeah, because see, this division has the lowest win total of any of them, 30. They have 30 is the combined win total of all 4 teams. Now Miami plays AFC South and NFC North, and then they play Oakland and Cincinnati. Gosh, you know what? I agree with CJ here. I think it's a 6 spot. I think it lands 6.
Moving on to a team that needs no introduction, maybe the greatest team of all time in terms of dynasties, Bill Belichick's, Tom Brady's New England Patriots. 13-3 last season. It seemed like their win totals are always around 10.5, 11, sometimes 11.5. Wow, 40 years old, I think Tom Brady is. Can they just keep winning, CJ?
Well, one thing with New England is that you have a background of excellence here, and you have seen what they've done in the past. They lose players that you think are so essential, and then they just plug somebody else in. I'm going over here because it's a question of whether they're going to win 12 or 10 games, right? If you have to go one way or the other, and I would go over here. Quick plug for the alma mater. Okay. They love those little Smurf receivers. Okay. In the 6th round, they drafted a kid named Braxton Berrios, who is 5'9", great hands, returns punts, can run. And, they'll make him into a player there in New England. Danny Amendola is here in Miami now. Well, they'll take the Miami kid, University of Miami kid, and they'll make him a great role player in their offense one way or the other. They just keep chugging along.
Frank?
I'm going to pass on this one also because, I think 11's a really good number. I would see if you bet over, you got to win 12. That's tough. If you bet under, then you can only you got to get to 10. I think 11's a number. They play AFC South, NFC North. Then they play KC and Pittsburgh. Tough. It's too dependent on Brady. I'm going to pass on this one also. I think 11 is the number.
I'm going to file this away for a future show based on what Charles Jay said. Here's the question of the day: Could Bill Belichick make Ryan Leaf into a Super Bowl quarterback? That's going to be a future show. We'll get to that later. New York Jets, 5-11 last season. Drafted, of course, the big news, the top draft choice out of USC, Sam Darnold. I'm not a believer in USC quarterbacks playing in that 72-degree weather, that soft grass, those lousy Pac-10, Pac-12 teams. I really like Todd Bowles as a head coach of the Jets. In fact, that was a covering machine, I thought, a lot of times with the Jets last season. Seemed to cover more often than not. Lost a lot of close games, but I do not like Sam Darnold as a starting quarterback. Over under 6 wins. Frank, I'm going to throw it first to you on the Jets.
Oof, that's another tough one. Okay, AFC South, NFC North is who they play outside of their division. Then Cleveland and Denver. 6 under 30. Gosh, this is a tough one.
If you're thinking about it, you're probably passing.
You know what? I'm gonna. I'm passing, brother. I don't have to play. I don't have to.
You don't have to play. You don't have to bet every game. Charles Jay.
Well, this is one of those teams, as you kind of alluded to. They played 3.5 really good quarters against a lot of teams last season, and they couldn't close out things. So they were close. And that was unexpected. You mentioned Todd Bowles. Hey, there were people writing in the New York newspapers about how they might go 0-16 with the dump they made of players last offseason. I don't know that Darnold figures into this thing too prominently this season. What makes this an intriguing possibility, believe it or not, is Teddy Bridgewater. If he is healthy, and if he can play. Remember, he's a guy that took Minnesota to the playoffs. He's been to the Pro Bowl. He is mobile. He can do a lot of things. He was a first-round draft choice. Who knows what could happen if you have a guy like him that wins the starting job. I think right now they're looking at Josh McCown. But I think the Jets have made a couple of little additions like Terrell Pryor at the wide receiver spot, Isaiah Crowell's come aboard. These are things that I think will make a difference in making them more competitive. So I would lean toward the over with the Jets.
Over on the Jets at 6 wins. Moving on to the Oakland/Las Vegas Raiders coming in 2019. Las Vegas residents, we have to plug that. John Gruden, first year, he's back as a head coach. First time he's going to coach in 10 seasons. I'm not sure that's a good thing. The NFL's changes a lot. 8.5 wins, I think, 8 wins we've got here at Bet Any Sports on the Raiders. This is a team that seems to have fallen back. A lot of people thought this was going to be a Super Bowl contender in 2017. They go 6-10 and disappoint a lot of people. And now they're forecasted as a 500 team. CJ, your thoughts?
I agree with you. I do believe Gruden has some catching up to do. And I don't know that what the game he played 10, 12 years ago is going to win here. I think that when he's been successful, he's had either a virtuoso in the West Coast offense, like a Rich Gannon, or a dominating defense like he had in Tampa Bay. He does not have a dominating defense in Oakland. But maybe he can mold Derek Carr into the kind of quarterback he wants. I wonder what they're going to get out of the running back spot with Marshawn Lynch and Doug Martin. They're good names, but are they going to give them? Are they going to give the Oakland Raiders? I don't even know if Lynch is playing. So it's an iffy proposition for them. They are the one team in this division I might go over with, but again, I think that they might be stuck on 8 as far as I'm concerned. Although, again, they have a chance if the enthusiasm of Gruden really sets in, that they could battle out with a team like the Chargers for the division title. It's a weak division, yeah.
Excellent point, though, about the leadership that Gruden could bring, maybe a game changer. That's a big, bold statement, but you could be right. There's upside there. Frank, what do you think on the Raiders?
Well, besides the fact that they're not in a great. I don't even like their division. I think that they can actually win at least 4 out of here. Then they got the AFC North, NFC West. They play against Miami and Indy. I like the Raiders. I like the Raiders over.
Wow.
I'll take the Raiders over.
That's a surprise to me. We'll argue about that going forward. I'm sure before the 2018 season starts. Let's move on.
I like the Vegas Knights too, by the way.
We're going to close it out with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
So, no laughing.
A team that's always a public team. 13-3 last season. Mike Tomlin, Ben Roethlisberger coming back for another season. Could be his last. There's discussion about that. Probably a weaker division than you've got Cincinnati and Cleveland. Should be 4 wins right there. Baltimore maybe falling back to 500. That should be easily. They get to 5 wins right there. But 10.5 on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Little surprise. I'm just a little surprised it's not shaded a little higher toward the over, given the pedigree of Ben Roethlisberger and what Mike Tomlin has done year after year with the Steelers. CJ, you agree?
Yes, I think there is, again, a history of excellence here as well. Don't forget Tennessee, by the way. I think
that's coming next.
That's one of my favorites. We're going to talk next.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Again, though, as Frank talked about, as we're speculating here, Roethlisberger could go down for a couple of games. And I think there's a huge drop-off beyond that. I wouldn't touch this prop now because – there's an iffy situation with Le'Veon Bell. I mean, they're going to put the franchise – I think they're attempting to put the franchise tag on him again. And although I'm not an expert in how all that works, I think they're all assuming he's going to wind up there on week 1. But I don't know that he's going to training camp. So this is going to be a strange situation with Pittsburgh.
Well, here's what I think about that. I kind of agree with most of that. They play AFC West outside of their division, NFC South. But see, then they get New England and Jacksonville. Tough schedule. And they're so dependent on Roethlisberger and everything. I will. I am gonna have to. But it's under 30. See, if you like the over plus 110, you should go to Bet Any Sports. That's the best price on the over.
Sure.
I'll take the under here. I'll take under 10.5. I'm not going to say they're going to win 11
You're
games.
probably thinking they go 10-6. That's your thought.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And then maybe they mail in a game or two. Yeah.
Not
By the way,
mail in.
they went 13-3 last season. I just want to point that
That's
out.
okay. They got everything going their way. They got a much tougher schedule, and Roethlisberger's another year older.
For sure. All right. So is Tom Brady, but he threw for 500 yards in the Super Bowl last season.
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm needling you here. Okay.
Hey,
All right.
guys,
Last
thank
team.
you.
By the way, a little extra time here, but we got the Tennessee Titans. It was just a remarkably interesting team to discuss here. We got 8 wins. Experts supposedly thinking they're going to go 8-8. But talk about Mike Mularkey, who was the coach last season. They win their first playoff game. They beat Kansas City. They win their first playoff game in 13 years.
Yeah?
Since 2003.
Wow.
He takes them to the playoffs. He goes 9-7, 2016. He goes 9-7 in 2017. This is a winning coach. He rebuilds that franchise, makes them into a winner after Jeff Fisher left him in the dumps for a decade. And then what do they do to Mike Mularkey? They fire him. He's gone. And so now the Tennessee Titans may be rudderless and right at 8 wins. That does not that number does not show a lot of respect for the Titans here. A lot of question marks. It's one of the most intriguing teams in the NFL to me. What do you think, CJ?
Well, I was going to say exactly what you said. I was going to mention about Mularkey getting fired after that huge comeback against Kansas City, but then losing pretty soundly to New England. But I look at it a different way than you do. The way I look at it is this organization is reaching higher. They believe that they have and should have the personnel to be a major contender for the AFC Championship. Mike Vrabel's going to be a really interesting influence on that team. They're not going to play what Mularkey referred to as the exotic smash mouth style of football. They have parted ways with DeMarco Murray, but they think Derrick Henry can be their workhorse running back. And remember, they got Deion Lewis, who was with the Patriots last season, and he adds a little bit to that passing game out of the backfield. Remember one thing about Tennessee. They got to the playoffs last season, and Marcus Mariota did not have a real good season, and he is capable of a better season than that. One quick note, an injury concern with them. Jack Conklin, the right tackle, an all-pro, he had knee surgery. He may have to sit out the first 6 weeks of the season if they put him on the reserve PUP list. And that could be a difference maker here with Tennessee. On balance, though, I'm over on the Tennessee Titans.
We got 20 seconds. Frank Perez?
I agree also. I think this team is a lot better than 8. And the 8's minus 105 on the 8 at Bet Any Sports. I would I'll definitely go over here.
Tough division. You got the Houston Texans, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
No, you got Indy, and then they play Baltimore and the Chargers.
Maybe the Colts coming back with Mr. Andrew Luck. A lot to cover. Well, we went over all 32 teams. Congratulations, gentlemen, on Fifth Street Sports. We covered all 32 teams. We're going to be right back with some closing thoughts and best bets here on FifthStreetSports.com. Back here on Fifth Street Sports with a closing segment. Closing segment, we talked in NFL all day here in May, and this is the AFC, the closing round, talking about our best bets of the AFC for season win totals of the upcoming, it's a few months away, but it's the 2018 NFL regular season coming up at the first part of September. Gentlemen, let's go over it one more time. Your best bets for the AFC. Frank?
Okay, I got 3. I like Kansas City under the 8.5. I want to take Cleveland under 5.5. I'm just going to stick with what I know. And I've been watching football 54 years, by the way. And then I'm going to also, I'm going to step out with this Tennessee over 8. That's my 3 in the AFC.
CJ, it's all yours.
Frank, can we go to the window together? I got Tennessee over, Cleveland under, and Houston over as my 3 best.
Boy, you got to be kidding me. Same
with
thing.
a 4th place finish for the 4th place. I almost said San Diego. Okay, the StubHub Center Chargers. Okay, are my 4th play there.
Well, gentlemen, I will not be joining you at the window unless it's to watch you guys, cash a ticket. I'll be standing on the sidelines and talk about the Oakland Raiders under, which that team's a fraud. It's falling back to its depths. This is a team that's in disarray. And the Cleveland Browns, 5.5. That win total should be 4.5 in my view. You don't go from 0 wins to 6 wins overnight. It's going to take some time. And wow, we covered a lot of territory, gentlemen.
Yeah, we did.
I'm really impressed. Thank you very much. A good shootout. Shout out to Boggs Polino. He's our technical wizard here at Fifth Street Sports for flipping all the switches and making sure. CJ, what do you got there, Frank?
Oh, and I just want to say, hello to the boss. He's in Colorado watching his son graduate college. And also, don't forget, betanysports.eu. 50% bonus up to $1,000. It's World Cup time, fellas, and it's Major League Baseball, reduced juice, and everything we just talked about in the NFL.
Always be closing, and that's what he's doing is closing. Be sure and follow us at FifthStreetSports.com. You can subscribe. We've got a website that's live now. Follow us at Twitter, FifthStreetSports.com. We're going to come back every single Saturday. We're here from 2 to 4 Pacific Standard Time with a live show talking about sports. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you again next time.